Hey guys, welcome back to another video. And today we're going to preview the big one. Manchester City are playing Lyon in the Champions League quarterfinals. We've beaten them before, of course. They've beaten us before. But I thought I'd get on an expert today to talk a little bit more about Lyon. Because we all know about Lyon, of course, but we don't all pay attention fully to how they get on the league. So I wanted to bring in someone who knows a little bit more about myself. So hence, Jonathan's here. Jonathan, how are you doing, mate? You all right?
Hey there, very well, thanks. And you? Thanks a lot for having me on.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm looking forward to basically being informed a little bit because, I mean, we all pay attention but don't know quite as much as you do. Jonathan Johnson is a French football specialist. He knows his stuff. So he'll be basically telling us all about Lyon today and what they can bring and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to go basically over a fair few things. All sides of Lyon, basically. And we're going to start initially, Jonathan, if you don't mind, just about really how Lyon have fared this season, because a quick look at their results and so on. They've had a pretty disappointing season in the league. I think that's probably a fair thing to say. They're down in 7th, miles off the Champions League form, and they only really got through essentially into the knockout stages of the Champions League, kind of just pipped Benfica and Zenit. Is it fair to say they've been a little bit disappointing this season?
Yeah, obviously things haven't gone to plan for Lyon pretty much from the get-go. Silvinho was appointed as coach. Juninho returned to the club as sporting director. That was an experiment that only sort of lasted a couple of months before Silvinho was shown the door. Rudy Garcia was brought in. Although the results haven't been spectacular, there has been an improvement there. Lyon were pretty disastrous under Silvinho. Garcia has added a bit of solidity to their game, and that's why they were able to sort of, just about scrape through in the final rounds of matches to get out of the group. And since then, they've basically been playing catch up after their poor start to the season. I mean, you mentioned it, all the way down the table, not looking at continental qualification for next season. That's a massive blow for Lyon. I mean, I don't know how many listeners will be aware of the fact that the last time Lyon didn't play any continental competition was the 1996-1997 season. Really? So to be out of European competition for the first time since then, obviously that's going to be a big shock to the system unless Lyon can pull off the impossible and win the Champions League, which very few people, if any, I think it would be a very brave man to put money on that. Even if they were to get past City, they're still in the harder side of the draw, arguably, and judging, all the teams left in the competition on paper, you'd have to say that Lyon are probably the least well-equipped now to advance. They do still have some quality players in there, and that has shown from time to time over the season in certain isolated matches. But like I said, going back to the beginning of the campaign, it was just such a disaster the way that things started with Silvinho that, kind of their season was always going to be something of a damage limitation exercise. And they were unlucky against PSG in the cup final recently, which would have secured them European qualification. They managed to push PSG all the way through extra time into penalties, and then Keylor Navas, playing the hero, broke Lyon hearts, unfortunately.
So what went wrong essentially at the start of the season? Was it a simple case of the coach didn't really fit the players, or the players didn't adapt to the system, or was there anything more to it than just a simple case of the wrong manager at the wrong time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it pretty much is as simple as that. You're wrong coach, wrong time. Because Silvinho obviously has a lot of good ideas. He's very articulate about the way that he likes his football being played. Has great vision. Is very ambitious. I'd say one of the big issues, certainly it struck me, as somebody who covers the league, was the fact that Silvinho, was not an obvious choice. His French wasn't wasn't the best, and that inability to communicate meant that he struggled to get across a lot of ideas to his players. I mean, Lyon as well, over the years, have become a club that are accustomed to selling off their most talented players. We saw them selling off Ndombele to Tottenham Hotspur fairly recently. There's, teams queuing up around the block to buy guys like Houssem Aouar. Teams interested in Memphis Depay with his contract running down. Moussa Dembele's been linked with half of Europe as well. So it's, there are always talented players at Lyon. It's just a question of whether you've got the right coach, in order to get the best out of that specific set of players. Now, I'm not saying that Rudy Garcia is the perfect man for that. Silvinho may well have been able to be that guy, that good fit, if he was given a bit more time, but such was the precarious nature of Lyon's position early on in the season that they really couldn't hang around and give him much more time. So, having decided to go in one direction with the project, they suddenly go in another. And it's, I would say it's as simple as that it was the right guy, wrong time. He could have been good at another point in Lyon's history, but Lyon are a club that are, strongly built upon their youth academy these days. And I think it really takes somebody who knows the inner workings of the club in order to succeed. Obviously, it helps having somebody like Juninho who knows the club inside out as the sporting director. But, it's taken somebody more pragmatic in Rudy Garcia to get the results on the pitch, even if Garcia is not necessarily the best fit long term.
Yeah, so looking at Lyon in general, so I'd like to basically discuss, if that's all right, what their current strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and basically from City's perspective, really looking at where they can get at the team maybe or anything like that. But we'll start initially with their strengths, if that's okay. Basically, how will Lyon look to get Manchester City? Basically, what is their basically main point of attack? What are their strengths? What makes them at their best on their best day? If that makes sense.
I mean, I think you have to look at their attack. I mean, I've already mentioned the likes of Depay, the likes of Dembele, the likes of Aouar. Then you've got Carl Toko Ekambi as well, who's also a very useful player. And I think all of those guys showed what they can bring to the table against Juventus. It was Aouar who won the penalty, Depay who dispatched it. And I think as well that perhaps the most frustrating thing about this Lyon side is the lack of consistency, because you look at the defence and at the midfield, and they're not, they're not really that weak. It's just, it really depends on the kind of performances that the players put in. I mean, you see like Marcelo, was heroic against Juventus, but it's not always the case. And if he's not in that sort of form, then immediately the defence is a bit more vulnerable. There's a bunch of guys dotted around the team that I'm a fan of. You've got the likes of Dubois on the right hand side, who's a player I rate very highly. And you've got the young emerging Cacré as well in midfield, who is a fine young talent, despite the fact that his hairstyle is probably outdated by maybe 40 or 50 years. Basically, this Lyon side, they do have talent. They have talent all over the pitch, but their main threat to City will definitely come through that front line. I mean, you've got a guy who's playing like he's possessed since he's returned to fitness in Depay. Somebody who didn't look like he was going to be getting near a football pitch anytime soon when he picked up his injury towards the end of last year. Worked ridiculously hard to get back in shape with the idea of being fit for Euro 2020. Obviously, we know that that's now been pushed back a year, but he's still for him to have come back and to be available for selection in this is phenomenal. And for him to be playing a key role for Lyon at this moment in time, scoring the goal against Juventus that ultimately saw them through, he is going to be the danger man for City to keep an eye on.
How is it that Lyon set up these days? Because you look back at, say, back in 2018, Manchester City played Lyon. As we mentioned as well, that's a very different side now, really, because people have moved on, like Fekir has moved on, as you said, and Dembele as well. And Mendy as well, of course. Back at that game in 2018 when Manchester City lost, you had like Raphael and Mendy bombing forward down the wings. You had Fekir and Dembele in midfield, alongside Aouar as well, of course. But it feels like, looking at the team that played against Juventus, there are obviously some familiar faces there still, but it looks like they were playing three at the back as well. Has the system massively changed compared to back in last time Manchester City played Lyon? And if so, how are they likely to set up for this game?
I mean, I wouldn't say that they've massively changed. I mean, the way that I saw them against PSG in the Coupe de la Ligue final recently, I think that is the way that they're going to approach pretty much any Champions League matches that they have, from this point onwards. I think it's going to be a tall order for them to get past City, but I think they will look to do to City, what they tried to do with Juve and what they tried to do with PSG. They were more successful with PSG because they kept them scoreless over 120 minutes. Yeah. And basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep things tight at the back, but carve out a few opportunities going forward, notably on the counter attack. Because they have the players in attack to hurt opposing teams, and Aouar for me is the key guy, because if you can get him, sort of dictating the play, controlling the tempo of this Lyon side, if you create chances for that front line, guys like Depay, Dembele, if he starts or if he comes off the bench, they are constantly going to have goal threats.
In terms of I guess basically like key man, you've touched on Aouar there basically. I mean, is there anyone that Manchester City fans maybe won't know quite as much that had an impressive season for Lyon or anything like that? Because I mean, Aouar and like Depay are kind of like household names. City fans, of course, familiar with Jason Denayer. Is there anyone else in particular to look out for from Lyon?
I mean, Denayer, I guess, the one thing I would say that, City fans might be interested to hear is the fact that, he has pretty much become one of the unsung heroes in that Lyon backline. Doesn't often get the credit that he merits. Yeah. But as I mentioned earlier, it's very, very important that the consistency levels within the team, and Denayer, to be fair to him, is probably the most consistent performer in that Lyon backline. Very solid, difficult to get past. I mentioned Dubois. He's perhaps somebody who's less familiar to City fans. I really rate him on the right hand side, but the real revelation is Cacré. Come through the Lyon Youth Academy as do many talents. And is really starting to carve a name for himself, and looks like he's going to be the next big talent off of this Lyon conveyor belt. Really, really looks so much more mature than he is. Still just a teenager. Looked very accomplished against Juventus, and has done well as well domestically for Lyon over the course of the season. So he's definitely somebody I would be watching out for if I was City. I think he's going to pick up the baton from Aouar whenever Aouar does move on, if it's this summer, as is probable with no European football next season. We'll just have to wait and see, but it certainly looks like Lyon have their next homegrown star.
Well, Jonathan, thank you very, very much for coming on, mate. It's been genuinely very, very informative. I've really enjoyed it. And where can people find you on social media and things like that, if you don't mind me asking?
The best place to find me would be on Twitter. That's where you'll find me chatting about French football. So at JON_Les Gossip.
Wonderful. I'll put a link in the description below. Guys, thank you to Jonathan for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Do let us know what you make of this Lyon side and how you think they'll set up and all that kind of stuff down in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. There'll be more videos very, very soon. Bye-bye.